Okay, so I want to welcome us to the pre-New York session analysis for today, Thursday, 19th of December, 2024. We're already in the Christmas season, so I wish you compliments of the season. So we have quite a number of fundamental events this afternoon. First being the monetary policy summary, MPC official bank rate votes, and official bank rate from the United Kingdom, which will come up by 1 p.m. Then by 2:30 p.m., there'll be about four news events from the United States. That's the final GDP quarterly, unemployment claims, final GDP price index, and the Philly Fed manufacturing index. But so we're going to look just at the pound and the dollar. Now you can see that we have a lot of fundamental events, so we're going to be doing more of fundamentals. Though I have one technical setup, which I will share with us, which might trigger possibly later this afternoon. So for the first set of events, which will come by 1 p.m., like I said, they are the pound events. And the first one is the monetary policy summary. There is nothing like forecast or actual for that one. But the next one is the MPC official bank rate vote. Now, this all talks about interest rates. So it's going to come up by 1 p.m., followed by the official bank rate. Now, if you look at the details for the MPC official bank rate votes, it says more hawkish than expected is good for the currency, and for official bank rates interest rate at which the Bank of England links to financial institutions overnight, and actual greater than forecast is good for the currency. So if by 1 p.m. the news comes out actual greater than forecast, the color will likely be, the color is going to be in green. And if the actual greater than forecast, we'll see a bullish, movement on the pound. And if on the other hand, the actual comes out less than forecast, the color will be in red, and we'll see a bearish movement on the pound. And similarly for the dollar events. Now, these dollar events, most of them are not so related. Like we have final GDP quarterly unemployment claims, then a final GDP price index, Philly Fed manufacturing index. The two similar ones here, like final GDP quarterly and the final GDP price index, they are related, so they may go in the same direction. But the unemployment claims and Philly Fed manufacturing index, they are not related to, the following. So it's like we're having three events, in different groupings like that. So if by the time these events are released, they are all good for the pound, that is actual greater than the forecast. If you have a green scenario all through, then we'll have a massive bullish movement on the dollar. And if on the other hand, the news comes out bad for the dollar and it's a red scenario, then we'll look for an opportunity to sell the dollar. Now we can see that we have events, which cut across both the dollar and the pound. And that means we need to, the currency pair that connect all these news together is actually the GBP USD. So that means we need to take a lot of caution around trading the GBP USD this afternoon, because if the news comes out on the pound and dollar and they are both, strong, bullish, that will lead to some spikes or some range in the GBP USD. So you need to be very careful about trading the GBP USD for this afternoon. So I'll go over now to the technicals to show us the pairs I'm looking at trading for this news event. So I'm going over to my MetaTrader now. All right, I'm a MetaTrader. For the pound news, I'll be looking at trading the GBP New Zealand. Now, I will advise you trade this currency pair with a lot of caution because it can be very volatile. But that's where we have the setup. So we have to look at it. Now, this is GBP New Zealand on the 1 hour time frame. If I go to the weekly time frame, we can see that, we can see a rising wedge pattern being formed. And in a rising wedge pattern, price makes a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, on and on like that. And the next wave ought to be a bearish wave downwards, technically. We'll go to the daily, and currently on the daily, we can see that today's candle is actually, you know, not just a rejection candle, but this is really forming what looks a lot like a doji. That's a daily time frame. And we'll flip to 4 hour, nothing much on 4 hour. But then on 1 hour time frame, we can see the formation of a double top pattern, which is a letter M pattern, and price has currently broken the neckline, indicating that the market is ready for a bearish breakout. Now, if by 1 p.m. the news comes out actually less than forecast, that would trigger a further bearish movement on the GBP New Zealand. Now, we're just about 20 minutes away from the release of this data. By 1 p.m., if the news comes out as actual less than forecast, then you can comfortably sell the GBP New Zealand. So I'm bearish on the GBP New Zealand. I'm also looking at the GBP card. That is another instrument I'm looking at. Now for the GBP card, we can see also from the weekly time frame, we have a rising wedge again. We have a rising wedge pattern, and price has moved severally within this pattern. The next wave here also is a bearish wave. So we go over to the daily. Now you can see clearly on the daily that we have a rejection candle that closed yesterday and also a rejection candle today, side by side. That sometimes could signify the possibility of a reversal. This is the 4 hour. Now, the 4 hour time frame, you can see that price is actually touching the tip of the trend line, which is also indicating a possible bearish movement. And on 1 hour, we're seeing more of a range, but then price still touching the tip of that trend line from the weekly time frame, which also indicates the possibility of a reversal. The last two candles are actually bearish at the moment. So if the news comes out as an actual less than forecast again, we are expecting a possible bearish movement on the GBP card. But I'll hold on more to the GBP New Zealand that has a more high probability setup. So I'm bearish on the GBP New Zealand and I'm bearish on the GBP card ahead of the news that will be released by 1 p.m. Now for the dollar news, I'll be looking at the USD Now before we look at the USD I would like us to look first at the dollar index. Now there's the dollar index on the daily time frame and price. There was a massive bullish movement yesterday due to the outcome of the FOMC, that's the Federal Open Market Committee report, and price eventually on the dollar index hit a resistance level on the daily time frame and it closed on that level. So for price to have closed at a resistance level means that technically we're looking for an opportunity to sell the dollar index, and that's is reflected on the USD Now, there's a USDCHF on the 4 hour, but we should start from the weekly. From the weekly time frame, we can see that price is trending downwards. And not only that, we equally have a resistance, zone over there. That means that our overall outlook for the USDCHF is a bearish outlook. Without taking our time, if we flip down to 4 hour time frame, we can see we have a falling wedge pattern, which is a bearish pattern. So if the news on the dollar, now there are about 4 events on the dollar. If all of them comes out, bad for the dollar, then that will aid the bearish breakout of the USD CHF. So technically we're bearish on the USD CHF. Now back to what I said about the GBP USD the other time. You can see that the GBP New Zealand is bearish, the USD CHF is bearish. So if the news comes out, bad for the pound, bad for the dollar, if you have to trade a currency pair like GBP USD, that will give you a lot of issues. So what I would advise with this news is that for the pound news, stick with the GBP New Zealand. We're bearish on that one. And for the dollar news, we're bearish on the USD CHF. Like I said, I have a technical setup I will show us, which might break out possibly this afternoon, and that's the Euro AUD. Now, on the daily time frame, we can see that price hits a resistance level Price hit a resistance level yesterday. You can see a resistance zone. And so this candle is currently trading like, a doji or a rejection candle, which signifies a possible bearish movement, when added with the resistance level that price hit earlier in the morning. So technically, we're looking at the opportunity to sell the Euro AUD. That's on the daily. If we flip down to the 4 hour, we don't have much information except the fact that we still have that rejection candle, right here, which is indicating a bearish movement. But the important part I'm going is the 1 hour. Now, on the 1 hour time frame, we have a rising wedge pattern. All right, so this is a rising wedge pattern, which is indicating a bearish movement. And also, we're having the head and shoulder right at the middle, meaning we're looking at an opportunity to sell the Euro AUD. Now, price is currently testing the neckline. If a new candle opens below the lower trend line and your RSI crosses below 50, that will be a time to trigger a sell on the Euro AUD. And profit potential for this setup, all things being equal, if it triggers as expected, from Fibonacci 23.6 to Fibonacci 50 here can give as much as about 93 pips. You don't even need as much as that, just the first Fibonacci level at 38.2 can give you about 50 pips. Then Fibonacci 50 can give about 90 pips. Fibonacci 7.8 can give about 130 pips, and Fibonacci 17.6 can give about 194 pips. At least if you take the first level, which is just about 50 pips, that should just do for you, except you want to push it on to the next level, which is 50. Fibonacci 50 at about 90 pips. 50, 90, that can give a total of about 140 pips. 940 pips on 0.1 lot is $140, and that's a lot of money with the current exchange rate. And even if it's $14, if you're trading on 0.01 lots, $14 is still a reasonable money, with the understanding that Christmas is just some few days away from now. All right, so take note of this setup. If it breaks out today, you can trigger a sell once a new candle opens below this lower trend line. All right, so that'll be all from my end this afternoon. I'll just do a little recap. We're expecting news from two currencies, the United Kingdom, that's the British pound, and the United States, the dollar. So by 1 p.m., the news from the United Kingdom will be released. We're bearish on the pound, and we're looking at selling the GBP New Zealand. And for the dollar news by 2:30 p.m., we're looking at selling the USD CHF. And the third instrument is the one I just showed right now, which is the Euro AUD, and I'm bearish on the Euro AUD on the 1 hour time frame. So it's an intraday setup. All right, so that'll be end from my analysis this afternoon. If you have a question or two, I will take them as we begin to round up. Okay, so Ochong Faith is asking, sorry, Ochong John is asking me to check BTC USD. Okay, the last time I had analysis with you was, as with this class, was maybe yesterday morning, yeah. And I remember telling us that from what I was seeing on the BTC, that BTC will likely decline. And that's already happened. It already happened. BTC ended up forming, a head and shoulder pattern, and that led to the breakout of price, which tested this trend line. So from what we're seeing now, the possible movement of BTC could be in the bullish direction, because when price hit this support level, we can see there is a bounce in the upside direction, and that's what we can see at the moment. Now, we should not forget that the neckline of that head and shoulder is still valid up there. So price might test this support, which is now going to become a resistance for a retest of this trend line. But then let's take it down to a lower time frame, like 1 hour, so that we can have a clearer picture of what is going to happen. So these are the two scenarios that could happen here. Price may hit this resistance, then you look for an opportunity to sell. That's a possibility. The other possibility is that if the pull up here, if there is no sufficient pressure to push price up, price might drop back to this trend line and form a double bottom pattern And at that instance, it will target the upper trend line up there. I'll repeat that so that you can get it again. Currently, if there's sufficient volatility, price may go up to hit this support turn resistance. Then you're not going to buy. You're only going to wait for this to happen. Then you can now look for an opportunity to sell downwards to this lower trend line. That is the first way to trade it. There, you're looking for opportunity to sell. Now, if it doesn't work out that way, the other plan is this: if there is sufficient volatility, if there is no sufficient volatility rather to push it this afternoon, price may drop from this place downwards. Don't forget there are some news this afternoon. It may change direction. But if price drops from here downwards on its own, then this pattern will evolve into a double bottom pattern from where you wait for a breakout of the neckline upwards and target the upper trend line over there. So that's my outlook for BTC for this afternoon session. I'm bearish on the short term and I'm bullish on the longer term. Joshua Kure is asking about gold. Now, technically, we're bearish on the dollar. So if we're bearish on the dollar, there's a probability that gold may be going bullish. Now, this is gold on the daily time frame, 4 hour. Now, the movement of gold will be determined by the outlook, by the outcome of the dollar. I want us to take note of that. But technically, what I'm seeing is possible is that price may drop, then break out afterwards. But like I said, it still ultimately depends on the outcome of the dollar news. If the news comes out good for the dollar, then gold will drop to this support, to that lower trend line. But at that instance, it will have formed a double bottom, then can lead to a bigger breakout later. So I will encourage you to wait for that news to be released. That's the decider of what happens to gold. Technically, we are bearish on the dollar, but then the news may come out good for the dollar. So if the news comes out good for the dollar, it's going to be a short-term bearish movement for gold, and that's where this pattern here will evolve. It will be a short-term bearish movement for gold. Then technically later on, gold can reverse back upwards. Now, if the news follows the analysis and it comes out bad for the dollar, then gold can outrightly break out. So it's the news by 2:30 p.m. that will determine the final movement of gold. EU, Abiola Balogun, okay. Now for Euro USD, price is currently trading at the support level on the weekly time frame. Same thing as like I said earlier, the news is what will determine the movement, but technically there's a possibility price may drop if the news comes out good for the dollar. Price may drop, form a double bottom, and pull back up later. So let's wait out for the news. The news will decide the final movement of this instrument. Usually, when there's a news ahead, you need to wait for the news first before you start looking at what to trade. If you want to trade the news, follow the guide I've given. Technically, we're bearish on the dollar. All right, that'll be the all from my end this afternoon. Trade safe and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir. Have a good day.
You're welcome. Yes.